No access, please, Sasha.
For the reward. Subjectively, it seemed to me that the machine was quite large. I even compared it to something, and it turned out to be even smaller. When the shooting starts, he pees like an ant.
If it's before 8, I'll bring cognac.
And if it's before 10, then 2? I was like, oh wow, Mad Max. It's gonna be literally Mad Max, dude. Upgrade the wheels. And at that moment, I flipped over, and I was like, whoa, that's a cool feature. Well, to start with, I played on iOS. You already know, the 14 Pro, we remember. So, an important note. I didn't check any analytics. I didn't have access to data, so everything I'm about to say is purely hypothetical. These hypotheses are based on two things. One is entirely subjective, which is my experience as a player, and the other is perhaps somewhat objective, which is my experience as a game designer. I have a feeling that on the first level you have a high dropout rate, and it seems to be no less than 15%.
Around approximately 30%, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
See, I was being a bit lenient, and now I'll try to suggest why that might be the case. So, the next question is this. In the first, say, 5 or 6 levels, at least on iOS, which is what I played, towards the later levels, do they differ or not? No, only the mechanics changed, while the levels themselves remained identical. The shooting mechanic and the nitro mechanic were slightly adjusted, and new content was added, but the overall flow of these levels stayed the same. So, we won't focus on the mechanics changes themselves for now. The first issue is that within a short level duration, I was introduced to 5 to 6 mechanics and explanations all at once. That means roughly 3 buttons and 3 tokens. I was shown 2 movement buttons, forward and backward, a shooting button, and an explanation of what these tokens are for. Personally, I found it quite overwhelming. That's an incredibly high cognitive load, mentally and emotionally, and within a short period of time.
So basically, the tutorial needs to be stretched out, right?
Yes, come on, I was trying to make it all poetic. Night, street.
I'm just taking a few more notes.
Don't.
Go on, formulate it properly.
Hold on a sec. Here, I'm sending you the doc right away. Just going through my own docs that I wrote, so here I am.
By the way, I checked, it's 20% on the first level in the end.
No access, Sasha, it's behind a reward. So yes, indeed, one of the solutions to, in fact, actually, certainly and undoubtedly reduce cognitive load is to... Okay, not like that. First point, there's quite a large number, 6 mechanics. Second, subjectively, it seemed to me that the car isn't actually small. I even compared it to something, and it actually turned out to be even smaller. The next question is, if I, as a player, want to have at least some association with this car, it seems like it should be made slightly bigger. In the context of the environment and all the other locations, it really looks tiny, and the details are almost unreadable. On a screen like this, it's roughly 1 centimeter, and the car seems to completely disappear against the background of the props, especially in battles where there's a lot going on. It just gets lost. Subjectively, I would like the car to be slightly bigger, maybe by about 15%. Of course, I understand that you designed the level layout while considering the car's size. In many places, yes, but certainly as an experiment on a few levels.
But we can simply visually enlarge it without physically increasing its size. That could perhaps be worth trying.
Well, probably yes. Conditionally, visually, yes, while the colliders remain in place. Moving on. Personally, for me...
Someone mentioned that their car wouldn't fit in the garage at max upgrades, so making it even bigger might be an issue.
Well, it's not really a question of what happens later. It's about the initial perception, the first FTUE. Not the very first, but specifically FTUE.
What if we perhaps make it bigger in the early levels and then scale it back to normal? In the early levels, size isn't critical.
It seems it isn't.
So it's for the initial perception.
It seems it isn't. If I was given something big, such as a toy or gadget, I played with it, and then it suddenly became smaller. That would be frustrating. And I don't understand why, for some reason, it became diminished in size. The issue here is probably one of scale. That is, in essence, theoretically, when you were designing the level, you took into account that, according to your difficulty curve, by level 15, the player would arrive with a big vehicle, such as a Hummer or something else. And based on those sizes, you adjusted the placement of obstacles accordingly. The second vehicle, the Hummer, was roughly the same size, meaning that in the garage it looked much more massive. Cool, I thought, now I'll be driving people to weddings shooting from a Kalashnikov. But in the game it was just as small. So in the end it's a matter of perception. What to do about it is up to you to decide. And that's a matter of my perception, a subjective one. Next point. It seems that in the starting location, small environment objects actually create a lot of noise. So, what do we have? We have a relatively short level, 6 mechanics thrown in, a compact vehicle, and a bunch of small props objects in total. Altogether, generally speaking, subjectively, it seems to create a rather noisy picture. Specifically somewhere regarding the color palette. So, perhaps it's worth reducing the number of objects a bit more and seeing how it relays. Not that there should be just one, but just playing around with it and experiment with different approaches to see how it relays in various scenarios and contexts. Let's move on. Alright, so here we definitely go. Overall, these were my impressions. I have a pickup truck. There's a machine gun on it. Everything's cool. Like, I know what to do, I press the forward button. But when the shooting starts, it dribbles like an ant. So it feels like... Well, it seems that from this, machine gun, this powerful weapon, there should indeed be some kind of higher impact, at least in the form of trails.
Visually, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know.
I'll write it like this. The ant is peeing now.
Yeah, so basically, the capabilities of this machine gun look about as effective as Kyiv in 3 days.
Listen, but maybe with upgrades, it could definitely change visually in a significant way.
It can be upgraded.
No, I mean, just so that it wouldn't stop dribbling, because of that, a little bit.
So yeah, well, the thing is, it does change visually. I have that noted at the end. But the thing is, when it changes in the garage, I'm like, oh, cool, awesome, awesome. Then I go back into the gameplay with the upgraded machine gun. And yet it's still a tiny icon on a tiny car background. So whatever changed in the garage, I can only see in the garage. But in the actual gameplay, I don't really notice these very small differences because they are too small. Now this is where exaggeration might actually help. Like say, you actually have a tiny base but a massive gun. Moreover, maybe this car will have 2 slots for weapons and you can place it here or there. Depending on the weight, since your car is a physical object with some weight. If you mount a machine gun here, it might make the car fly downhill faster like this.
And by the way, speaking of weapons, this reminds me of Mr. Autofire, that game where the guy just runs around. The shooting mechanics change significantly. And during the gameplay, check out Mr. Autofire.
Yeah, Mr. Autofire. Indeed, absolutely. Go on, definitely, without a doubt. So, this machine gun, well, you see, you sort of really want... It's fine. Moving on, another thing. As a person who has a relatively small, I really, really want the car to have...
A small machine gun.
Yeah, a small machine gun on the car. I want this car to have big wheels so that it's higher up. I'll try to explain. This ties into the idea of exaggeration. So, on a super small car, on screen, it looks like maybe we don't even scale the car itself, but instead, we initially make the wheels bigger since they increase with upgrades. I clicked a couple of times and they got like, oh, awesome, really cool. It's just unclear. Maybe I get stuck in the mud less with such wheels. Sometimes. Well, not sure. So, based on all this, it seems that if we implement it, the drop-off rate will decrease to around 8%. Well, in absolute terms. So, instead of 20, okay, maybe not 8, but around 10, I think this should relay properly. Alright, let's move on.
Sasha, I'll definitely let you know what percentage they drop to.
Alright. And you'll definitely owe me a bottle of cognac if it all works out.
If it drops to 8, then the cognac is on me.
If it drops to 10, then 2 bottles.
In mathematical terms, the number 10 is indeed significantly greater than the number 8.
We're working in the opposite direction here. We're talking in general in absolute terms?
We could perhaps even drop it to 50 even further if we really truly want that cognac.
Next is level 2, and I see this nitro type class. They were actually saying something about nitro, so I first watched the animated clip. By the way, it's pretty cool. I thought, oh wow, Mad Max. This is going to be like Mad Max. Well, almost. I entered the second level and figured I'd try to complete it just using nitro. Just for fun, without making any unnecessary movements at all. And I had a strong feeling that I wasn't using up anything at all. No, actually, let me put it differently. Thanks to the level design of the second stage, I didn't use any other mechanics. I was just driving purely on nitro. My spectacle versus reality. I thought, I'll drive through. Everything will be great. Physics, things will be crashing around. It turned out following. I was just driving into things, those little obstacles, breaking stuff. And under this really extremely intense, hardcore music, it was all falling apart in a very cartoonish way. So it feels like I have this significant and noticeable dissonance between the intense and driving music and these light-hearted and cartoonish sounds. Well, that's my experience with Nitro, the software or application in question. Let us proceed to the next topic or section. I finished the second level and they hit me with an ad.
So, Sasha, how would you perhaps modify these explosion effects to make them match the music slightly better? Like, for example, adding sound effects to make the explosions feel incredibly more intense, or visually enhancing them with dramatic and fiery smoke effects instead?
I don't know, that's a really challenging question. It seems like if we have extremely brutal music, then the impact should also be extremely brutal. But if we add incredibly intense destruction physics, first, we'll lose in terms of performance, especially on low-end devices. And second, if objects start exploding all at once, as you might expect, we'll end up with even greater mental processing load. So maybe the option here is to make the music less brutal, something a bit more fun, perhaps. I don't know. It's all subjective. Most likely, 85% of players will end up playing without the music anyway. By the way, please log a bug. After the fourth level, all the sounds in the game completely disappeared for me.
That probably happened after an ad.
Yeah, probably.
There's this peculiar quirk in our engine on iOS. On some ad sources, it's not Google, but perhaps some others, I don't know. Sergey can clarify which ones. Our sounds disappear, there's nothing we can do about it. It's a bug in the engine.
Got it.
All right. And we don't use Unity.
Can you add...
And not Godot either.
All right, I definitely got it. And not Unreal, and so on with the list such as...
Yeah, and not Unreal either,
Out of 80, we specifically encountered the exact same issue. Yeah, so we just disabled it temporarily until a fix was available. Moving on, I watched an advertisement. This particular one. Well, the second one, actually. So they showed me an ad pre-level. I completed the level. Immediately after, they showed me another ad. And after the ad, as a reward, of course, I definitely got a pop-up rate. I was very happy.
Makes sense. I didn't see it at all. Why didn't I see it? Because I didn't get very far.
Because you simply didn't actually complete the second level.
That can't be. I didn't see pop-up rates at all.
Maybe it only works on the second launch of the game. Possibly. Actually, it seems like it doesn't. Look, I was actually writing my... Oh, wait.
I definitely saw it clearly on the first one.
No, the guys are right. I just launched the game, so in my case, how did it go? I just installed it, launched it, then I actually had to attend a work meeting. I simply deleted the game, reinstalled it, and indeed this document is from my second gaming session. Yes, this is really my second time playing.
Well, keep in mind that you can also ask on the first one, just a few windows later, only, first ask if they like the game, where the rating is +4. If they say yes, then you can ask about the price.
Doesn't Google perhaps prohibit that?
You're just asking if they like the game?
Well, Google definitely prohibits certain things. It bans offering rewards, but asking whether they like the game or not, you can ask that 10 times if you want.
Let's move on. Level 3.4, guys. I also completed it without shooting at all, without performing any other actions, using the same previous logic. I passed through with no issues using Nitro. And at that very moment, I had a strong feeling indeed. There won't be issues ahead. The churn rate is starting to
The what rate?
churn rate player dropout. That is, it might have been important if I hadn't been using nitro for 3 levels in a row. Maybe I would have had a different impression. But for me, in level 2, I saw the easiest mechanic. Just drive on nitro, and your car doesn't crash. That's how I passed the 3rd level, the 4th, and in the 5th. Yeah, I think I tried it there, and I already failed. But I'm speaking from the perspective of my experience at the time of playing. And at that moment, I started thinking, so there won't be any more mechanics? I would have liked some moving obstacles, for example, something that would make you stop at times. Because, for instance, the back button, I was sure I would need to use it somewhere closer to the middle or the end, but in the first 5 or 6 levels, I barely used it at all. It would have been nice to have some moving obstacles, like in platformers. If we're talking about this as a platformer, then something like Mario indie games or something along those lines. But that's also kind of funny. I'm taking notes on all the points, but for this one, I wasn't sure what to write down. No, I guess there's nothing to write down here. I'm just sharing my personal impressions from playing 3 nitro levels in a row. So as a player, I chose this mechanic, and using only that one mechanic without anything else, I managed to breeze through the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th levels.
Look, that definitely means we need to adjust the level design so that it's not possible to complete everything using just one mechanic.
Absolutely right, yes. I said that I would like to have some moving obstacles so that there's some strategy involved. I followed that strategy. Then, on the 4th level in the garage, a tutorial hand popped up and was like, dude, upgrade your wheels. But before that, in the game, there was no instructional tutorial hand at all, and the tutorial hand didn't appear. This mechanic, if I take too long, a tutorial hand appears and gives me a hint. After the 4th level, it appeared right away. And then I thought, aha, since it appeared, that means the next level is going to be especially tough, and I really do definitely need to upgrade my wheels. But no, still, I definitely upgraded them. Went into the absolutely 5th level. And this was the first time a level actually felt really interesting to me. It was quite interesting because at that moment, my nitro strategy didn't work. At first, I initially flipped over because of... In the 5th level, there's this really interesting obstacle, and right next to it, there's another very interesting one. It's quite fascinating.
You broke the game down to molecules.
No,
No, that's cool. That was a compliment.
this is still a high-level assessment. Punch, right. And at just that moment, I completely flipped over and I was like, wow, that's a really cool and impressive trick. It seems like this moment should be slightly delayed so that perhaps the player steps back a bit and really thinks for a second before saying to themselves, oh, that's neat. But when I flipped over and then, of course, I naturally respawned again and kept going. Then I literally saw another mechanic. Amazingly, my front wheels somehow fell off, but I kept driving. And I was like, damn, this is a great game. At that moment, I thought, oh, this game is really cool. So here I died. I went through it again and tried shooting a little. And when I started using shooting, for some reason, somehow inexplicably, during my replay, this level became just as tedious and dull as the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th ones, which I was just trying to rush through and uninteresting. Why did that happen? It's unclear. The muddy puddles that appeared helped brighten the moment. Without them, it would have been even duller. With the muddy puddles, it's okay. Now moving on, let's discuss the interface. It still looks like it's from children's toys.
Well, are we a children's company?
Well, yeah, but I mean...
Forgive us for that. When we made those 6 adult games, we really had to put in a significant amount of dedicated effort and time to make sure they didn't end up looking like children's games.
Well, I see, you mean the in-game menu, right? The one with the levels that you can move back and forth, This button here, it actually at the same time reminds me of the play button in Homescapes. And a reward ad window. I don't know, my first frustration was that when I clicked it, I thought it looked like an ad video. And all the other elements, they perhaps feel kind of unclear. Honestly, I would redesign the screen to look more mature, again, if I knew the target audience. Like who's playing, maybe they actually, perhaps even like it So after this level, I switched my pickup truck to a Hummer, and I was like, oh, cool. But why didn't they show me this? Why didn't they show me? I mean, up until this moment, I specifically assumed that I would have only one car. Actually, yeah, I also still thought there was only one, but you just didn't go past the second level. Are we in define or in the problem? Yeah, I'm at some point. I don't know. Let me think.
All right, off out of force. Okay, now I don't know what level I'm at. I reached level 12. I crashed piloting on level 12. I don't know that there are other cars. I know there are different comics.
It seems that the next moment, the class of the car is like this. But why didn't you mention it earlier? I mean, essentially, you hid the most, well, probably. This is your mechanic, this is your core gameplay. So, your core gameplay is not level design or controls, but rather this car switching mechanic, which also implies a change in the gameplay experience somewhere along the way. Like, a long car will fall this way, while a short one will spin more. Well, they are quite physics-based. And I start thinking, how can this be fixed? Maybe it can possibly be fixed in the following way. I start the game. One car is the basic vehicle and the other is a Hummer. And let the player choose. At the same time, you can see which car will be more popular. And the player will immediately realize that there's more than one car here. That's the first option. Second choice. Do the same thing, but in a specific game menu where the other cars are shown as locked, just silhouettes, and unavailable in the game. Oh, everything here is absolutely great, cool, lots of content, cars, and everything else. You took away 5 levels of my understanding of what's going to happen in the game. Moving on. So, I picked the Hummer, went to the next track, and died in the first mud puddle. I have no idea why that happened. I pressed retry and died again. Well, I was driving calmly, no acceleration, nothing. It seems like indeed the next thing is you need to evaluate the lose rate. Basically, if players take the Hummer and go to the next level, you need to assess the lose rate and adjust it accordingly.
Make it higher. Well, I mean lower.
Yes, exactly. That's it. Well, in absolute terms.
Basically, I essentially took the Hummer vehicle and started successfully winning at least a couple of multiple consecutive rounds in a row.
And I will started winning in a different way. That is, I got new content and I really want to enjoy it. Truly understand that it's absolutely powerful and test it all out, right? And then, at the same time, look, with the new content comes a new level, and there should be new obstacles on it. I didn't get new mechanics, or rather, not in the way I might have actually expected, right? For example, this little pickup functions effectively well on certain, such as on the previous level, it actually worked on those obstacles. Then I upgraded it to a Hummer, and they gave me a new level where the same obstacles are handled much better by the Hummer. So maybe I would definitely indeed use this approach to show the player that this new content handles certain obstacles better and makes the gameplay easier for them.
Look, based on what you're saying, I just wrote down an idea. After an upgrade, depending on how many upgrade steps the player has taken, we make the level easier by a certain percentage, either by lowering the HP of obstacles or increasing the power of their bullets. Then, on the next level, we revert to how it originally was, so if they like the improvement, they'll be encouraged to upgrade more.
And at that moment, when I got wrecked once again, I started to understand what I wanted from this mechanic. I undoubtedly want constant wrecking, slipping, and everything that comes with it. And then I thought, what if I race down the track using this mechanic? Pieces of me will constantly and consistently be spinning and flying off like, I don't know, maybe a wheel or something, but I can also pick up other random scraps on the track. It's kind of a little unclear. To heal? Well, no, more like, in a way visually. I mean, there is healing, since there are those things. So basically, I'm driving, but I pick up something different. So essentially,
So, did it give you something when you picked it up?
it attached itself somewhere, like to some part, basically your car.
So it healed you then?
It changed your appearance visually. You could see it as one of the mods.
So, like, you're driving, your wing falls off, and then you pick up a blue wing along the way and continue playing with a blue wing instead of a green one.
Exactly, indeed. For this level, yes, absolutely. Your wheel falls off, you drive forward, pick up another one. But wait, this little car...
Or you just crash into another car that was red. and as you pass through it, you end up with a red wing that got attached to you from it.
Well, something like that on certain levels, perhaps just for fun. I don't know, you crashed, your machine gun fell off, so to speak, and you can't shoot. But then you drive forward and pick up, I don't know, some kind of rocket launcher. So it's like the essence of Mad Max is buried here, where you build all sorts of cool cars out of scrap. The player drives, parts of the car fall off, they pick something up, and the vehicle completely transforms. But this is just purely like a bonus level, a fun level, or something like that. Next. So I crashed, I checked the healer, well, the reward, and I was spawned right in front of an obstacle. That seems bad. Here's what needs to happen next. I just crashed here.
Move back a little.
Heal, and I should start here so that I can gain speed. Yeah. So, well, there's actually a skip bug. The 9th level is really kind of easy, the 10th as well. I'd like to see more dynamic enemies, but in my opinion, this is just written down for the sake of having it written. Including various cars. The story, I don't understand why it's needed. So that's pretty much all I have for now.
At first you said it was great, and now you're saying you don't understand why it's needed.
I didn't say the story was great, I said the comic was...
I apologize, I incorrectly quoted you. Sorry.
And then everything else, well, they're showing me something. So what, I can read...
It's actually voiced as well, which means that there is an audio component included. But do I really know English well enough to fully understand it? Regarding the voice, you know what they often tell us? They say, describe the story. What did they say? I didn't even make a story, and then these guys give me reviews. There's no story. I really have no idea why I should play. It's just the opposite situation. Well, I mean...
Or like sometimes people go, wow, you can't disable ads in your game. What kind of garbage is this? Why did I even install this? Then you add an option to disable ads. And out of 1 million installs, only 2 people buy the ad removal. Yeah, totally worth spending 20 man-hours on that.
Also the testers who tested in-app their own cards.
No, actually, I recently added it, and I got 20 purchases a month ago, over the course of a month. I'm very rich, a whole 30 euros.
That's in adult games, but in kids' games, it's different. For us, if even one person buys it in a month, you start asking around and it turns out it wasn't them. Yes, this one is not a kids' game, but it's our first non-kids game, the first from the first wave. So we're used to kids' games. For us, if someone buys something in a month and you ask the tester and they say it wasn't me, then that already means, well, you could say you've made it in life.
Well, overall, the game has indeed paid off, it seems. I just remembered that old school video about WinRAR.
Oh, they posted on Twitter and people were laughing at them like, yeah, guys, how are you even doing? How are your sales? And they responded like, why would we change a sales model that already works? And it works. Show us the numbers. And they said, well, last month we sold about 10,000 licenses. And then everyone immediately went silent, realizing that while they were joking about them, it turns out WinRAR is actually monetizing just fine. Most of their sales come from, corporate purchases when companies buy licenses.